Okay, so welcome back. This evening, graphic designer and master letterpress printer Rick Griffith joins us. Also, from our UB faculty, artist designer Shasti O'Leary Student joins me in welcoming Rick and in our conversation tonight around his work in areas of visual communication, agency, and activism through his design practice and the various projects of Matter, which is a design consultancy, print shop, workshop, and retail bookstore based in Denver, Colorado. As design director at Matter, Rick Griffith works across all media for business, culture, and civic engagement. Griffith has exhibited his work, traveled, and lectured extensively at a great many institutions of art and design in the service of community and industry. His work has been celebrated by the Type Directors Club, print magazine Dwell, and the American Institute of Graphic Arts. Rick has designed and curated several exhibits on typography and letterpress printing and served as a curator and designer of exhibitions for AIGA National, as well as being inducted into the International Academy of Digital Arts and Sciences. In Rick's own words, his true orientation is toward self-reliance, disruption, creative compassion, and independent thought. Uh, I'll just quote one of Rick's posters here, process everything now. And to quote Matter's website, we help the good guys win. So now we welcome Rick Griffith to UB, Rick and Shasti and all the rest here in our grid. Thanks very much for joining us.
So hi everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to see that our Olivia, you might have to stay on top of the waiting room because we're getting quite a few more people from my other classes. So I'm really delighted to see my students as well as the some of the rest of you in this lovely series. Rick Griffith is one of my favorite people on the planet. I don't say that lightly. And for several different reasons, but I was so excited for the opportunity to be able to bring him to you, to this speaker series, to have conversations about what it really does mean to be a creative professional and what that entails, and how the overlap between that and being an artist sometimes is, not the same thing. But Rick and I met 14 years ago, I think. Has it been 14 years ago? Yeah. So Rick and I met 14 years ago when TypeCon was held in Buffalo, in downtown. And TypeCon is a typography convention. And we had typographers, really, really well-known typographers, come from all over the world, including people like Eric Spiekerman and some other type designers whose names escape me completely right now. But I was very privileged to give a talk as part of this convention, and I had been giving a talk. So 14 years ago, I've been working in publishing for a long time. I do book covers, and we were talking about creating typography in different dimensions, and I was a Photoshop expert. And so I gave this little lecture on how you couldn't believe quite what you saw. And at the end of the lecture, some very lovely people came up and said hello. And then this gentleman approaches me with essentially bozo hair, right? like this wild, fabulous hair and these fabulous glasses. And I think you were wearing a really fabulous suit too. There was like, whatever you were dressed in was pretty natty. It was very like, you were just such a fabulous gentleman. And you gave me this little card in this little envelope. And the little card in the little envelope, I opened the envelope, I took the card out, and the card typeset and letterpressed into very juicy, delicious, thick paper was a small card about the size of a business card. And it said in I think it was Shelley, script face. I have always hated your fucking work. Or was it, I have always fucking hated your work? I have always fucking hated your work. Right? This was his introduction to me. And I think he was a little unprepared for the fact that I walked straight into his arms and like squeezed him for 30 seconds. And we started talking, and we have not stopped talking since. It is my just absolute huge pleasure and privilege to introduce you to a man who's not only a really, really great designer, but an extraordinary teacher, and someone who I consider a role model and a bit of a hero of mine. This is Rick Griffith. Hi, baby. I'm so happy you're here. So say hello to the nice people.
Oh yeah, hello nice people. Hi Brooke, thanks for clapping for that introduction. She did work hard on that. Hey, I just want you guys to know that like you don't say that it's a safe space, you just make it one, right? And so I'm going to do a very brief land acknowledgement that where I live and where I raise my family and where I practice graphic design is the unceded territory of the Colorado Mountain Ute tribe, the Shoshone tribe, the Wyandot tribes, the Pawnee, and the Navajos. And, you know, if you live on this continent, which many of you guys do, they're your First Nation. And I draw attention to their struggle because, you know, the fuck, this can't just be about ourselves, right? And that's that. That's my land acknowledgement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I also just mention that we're going to really keep our eye out, use the chat as vigorously as you would like, and we'll keep our eye on comments and questions and try to make everyone feel part of our conversation tonight.
Yeah, use the chat.
Yes,
and then
pay attention to the chat too, because that's going to be important.
And also, just like if you just want to stop shit and then say something, then just say that's what you want to do in the chat, and Olivier or Max or Shasti will stop the action and we'll attend to your particular need.
Yes, projections sometimes are very useful.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we got a couple of hours to kill. We're going to spend some of that time talking amongst ourselves in public, right? Like 153 people get to see, or 152 people get to see what it's like when Max and Shasti and Rick have a chat. The chat is about design. And the reason why it's about design is mostly because I have a very limited repertoire and I can talk about design for 2 hours, but there are only maybe half a dozen other things I could talk about for 2 hours. And the other reason why is because we are all brothers and sisters in this design game. We are all trying to make it work. And the only thing that I have which may serve as some level of either inspiration or importance for you all is that I have lived as a designer, raised my kids as a designer, and they're your age now, they're in college and beyond, and I've done it without being much of a fucking sellout. And I think that unto itself feels like something that people want to know how the hell that's done, you know? And I may have a handful of tips and interesting ways of helping you through the challenges that you guys are in and the ideas that you guys are wrestling with right now, because, you know, capitalism is a motherfucker, you know, and what we get to do in 2020 is super different to even what we got to do in 2019. And it's definitely really different to what graphic design programs were selling in like 1990. And you guys should be confident that if we're in this conversation, which I think is one of the better ones, you know, to be had right about now, if we're in this conversation, then I believe that you should make good use of it. You should definitely like mine me for knowledge. I've got a bunch of it. But as far as me being like sort of a great graphic designer or the best graphic designer, you guys and me, we all look up to the same people, right? We all look up to the same exact people. Even if you don't know their names and I do, when I tell you about them, you'll look up to them too, you know, like we all look up to the same people. And what we have to share here is kind of an acknowledgement of great things that other people have done, but also an understanding of them and a way of processing that these people are showing us the possibility of design to come. They're showing us the possibility of what can come out of ourselves and what can come out of various types of collaboration in design. So I always like to think of when you look at something, you don't look at it to appreciate it. You look at it to appreciate the maker of it and the courage it took to make that thing. Or you look at it to appreciate the circumstances under which that thing was made and the fact that that person made it like while being hauled off to a concentration camp or something, you know, like your mind gets blown by so many different things, including context, you know, and maybe what you'll get is some more present tense sort of context for my life. And so how you can get the best out of me. But we should also not be foolish enough to think that you don't have some extraordinary context for your life and that amazing things are not in your absolute possibilities too.
So let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about how this particular year has informed a life spent creating and how that function needs to be elevated in a time like this. Because what we're dealing with right now, it's not just COVID. It's, you know, it's a peeling back of the veil that has been masking rampant racism for the last 50, 60 years, which has sort of been pretending like it was a problem that had been solved. It's the confluence of a massive number of absolutely horrifying events all happening within 12 months of each other. What happens to your voice under that circumstance? You know, how does the life that you've built as an autonomous person within the field of design, within the field of being a professional creative, what happens to the voice when this level of pressure is brought to bear?
We can work our way backwards from right this second, and we can say things like, oh, this is a good time to be a Black designer, because the 8 or 9 Black designers that exist, you know, in this country, who have been doing it for 30 years are busy giving lectures to people who have not. And then we can walk ourselves back from that thought to what happens when everybody wants like you to participate in their program because you're Black. What happens when you sense some kind of tokenistic expression? Or what happens when you sense that somebody wants to hire you because you're a woman, because, you know, like, gotta hire women, you know, right? And you're like, fuck off, you know? I mean, and then you can back up beyond that, and then you can be like inundated with images of a person who looks like they could be your relative being murdered on television. And you're being told that people are outraged And you're like, yeah, you know, like try processing outrage since you knew that was a reality, and then spend most of your adult life subverting that outrage so you don't get fucking killed, and then have someone tell you it's okay to be outraged. And you're like, fuck your permission. I'm going to feel the way I want to feel, whether you tell me so or not, you know? And so I waffle back and forth between being, you know, not particularly surprised and being really surprised by the amount of like white people that chose to give a shit that week. And then angry for my own internal reasons, but then angry because like the world was like telling me that I had to be the most outraged person in the room being a Black man. And I'm like, I'll settle for the third most enlightened, outraged person in the room after a young Black man, a young Black woman, and a Black woman coming directly before me, all of those people having suffered equal, if not greater, challenges to be present in that. And so you know, then I go back before that and I go, wow, this year got weird. This pandemic thing sure has me busy in my studio, not going anywhere. I would normally have been to like 6 countries by now. And here I am just hanging out in fucking Denver. And so, you know, like the year has been weird without a doubt, but it started out as being profound, and it still is really, really busy and really energized by what's going on. And because I have a printing press, I get to say what I feel, and I get to print what I feel, and I get to exercise that. Unfortunately, though, I couldn't print what I was feeling fast enough. And so what I decided to do was I decided to like pull out a brush, you know, and some black ink, right? So this Sumi ink and one of these brushes. And then I just went like, I bought every same size inking sketchbook I could find and started writing instead. And so I wrote a couple of 100 posters in my own sort of healthy vernacular, you know, like, I don't know if you guys want to get into it, but you know, there are notes, I'm surrounded by notes. I don't know if you guys have been this way, but this note says, code switching takes time. How much fucking time do you think I've got? You know, this one says, Black people are being policed by everyone, everywhere. And that's something that is not obvious to non-Black people. That like Black people are fucking being policed everywhere. It's not just about the school to prison pipeline and making sure that like young people are policed in high schools, which I do believe is a very big deal. But it's also about like you step outside of your home, everybody knows where the Black person is walking. They know which direction they're walking. They walk to the left, they walk to the right. That's a Black person. And I know that that's a Black person, therefore they are being surveilled. And I don't know how you guys would feel if you felt followed all your life, but you know, there's some shit going on there that's like, that's not healthy. And so rather than like just process it all on the inside, I actually took the time to write Yeah, can't you see why we'd want to save our children from that trauma of being overobserved, right? Or, oh yeah, this is a good one. This is a really good one, to be honest. Hold on. This is a three-parter. And so this is how I spent most of May, June, July. There's 10,000 police in our schools, thanks to fucking Bill Clinton, whose boredom, and bad training lead to whole generations of over-policed Black children. So now you know how cops treat Black people. Can't you see why we wouldn't want to save our children from that trauma? And there's like a couple of hundred writings like this. Some of them are less coherent than others, but my point with all of that was, rather than keep it on the inside and try and find people to talk to, and then, because what trauma does, if you're not dealing with a professional, is that trauma traumatizes people who you share with. And so I wrote it all down, and then I started mining it for the best ideas, and then always had a couple of posters ready to go, and then checked to see if it was even worth the ink, But all of this just to keep me psychically whole. And I think that's been my big job. Like, it was my job when I first had kids, for sure. But this year, the job has been to stay psychically whole. And I respect anybody who's trying to do the same thing, like without traumatizing and hurting other people,
So your voice is about to be amplified in one of the ways that you just described, right? Like that in the wake of what's happened, there's, suddenly a grand awakening that we need to elevate Black voices, and doing so in ways that can lend you a feeling of discomfort because of the feeling of tokenism. But by the same measure, that if you refuse, then the opportunity to make space, the opportunity to take up space, to take up visual and conversational space is lost, right? So there's that kind of the notion of bucking against tokenism, but then giving up the opportunity to speak. You're about to take up a lot of space and make a lot of noise with the show that you're going to have next year in the museum in Denver. You're developing these thoughts and you're amplifying your own voice by virtue of what your skill set is. What makes it past the gate?
I think it has to be not selfish, like that's my number one goal, is to try and find a way of talking for other people who don't have the platform, and for trying to make sure that there's a sense that, like, I know that it's not just about what I think, it's about what people want to be confronted with. There's a certain amount of that, like, that's available right now.
One of my colleagues just asked a really interesting question, because she says, this is Dina Ben Brahim. She is one of our design faculty as well. What do you think is the role of a designer in a context where design decisions and systems can oppress or liberate? What is your job within that?
Well, I did author a document a while back that spoke directly to the nature of having concerns, and it's the ethics for designers, the introductory ethics document, which I'm pretty sure there's a link for that somewhere. I think our job is to have concerns, to have a framework for viewing our action, and let that framework be pretty specific. The goal of my work is generally to not have any victims, and I think that right now, the many designers, if you told them that there were victims of their work, of their decisions, they would probably say, okay, well, I'm gonna have to rethink some of that. And I don't see why not. I think that rethinking the fact that what you do may have a negative effect on some other place or person, that's totally the right time for that.
This is kind of reminding me of one of the works that I've seen of yours, and maybe you have an image of it, where I think you were writing a definition of design, and then you were asked to clarify or elaborate, and then you made a notation of your own definition. And it seemed to me that kind of meta voice behind, like, asserting this kind of set of terms was an interesting way to both kind of advance an idea or a design subject, but then also maintain your authentic voice in and around it, or also give room for the margins to be activated and kind of contaminate something that's like both the voice of an authority and the fact that it's a evolving and constantly changing set of information.
Can you guys see this particular piece?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is, I think, what you're talking about, which is the definition of graphic design. And I authored this really shortly after Shasti and I met, and I shared it with Shasti, and she was actually the person who, it makes it sound like I have no other friends because I'm talking about her, but she was the person that said, oh, look at you with all your big words. Like, yeah, you got your big words, Mr. I love design. I'm going to make some big words, write a definition. And I was like, oh my God, that is so mean, but true. And so I annotated this one, and I annotated it because you're right. It's like important to have a serious thought or a serious belief, but it's also really important to be able to revise that thinking or rethink something and take yourself less seriously and be a little bit more open and silly, and also just own the fact that you're being so much of what people expect and want versus being your whole human self. And my whole human self wanted somehow to incorporate rap lyrics with the definition of graphic design. And so my whole human self eventually did, right? But it doesn't always occur to us that we have both the chance to be serious and not serious. Like, we really do. We have so many opportunities to be both serious and not serious.
Well, and the not serious sometimes is the entry point for serious. It's the not serious is a tool, right? It's a way to find the vector through which you can puncture with the serious, right?
Yeah. You and your big words. Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's the vector through which you puncture. Who gives
Yeah, that's language that I've been like steeped in over the last 48 hours because I've been writing this stupid fucking thing that I'm trying to get out and be as meticulous as possible with the words that I'm using. But that there are both sides to that, right? Like there's that really understanding that you have something really, really fucking important to say. And if you have something important to say, it behooves you to speak in the language of your audience, for one, right? But at the same time,
that's bullshit. Maybe
it is bullshit. But you don't yell fire in Greek when there's a fire in a movie theater in America. Like there's like, sometimes when you when you need to communicate an urgent message, and I would argue pretty much everything that you've made this year has been an urgent message.
Maybe.
There's a plainness to the language that winds up being very necessary. There's a forthrightness to what you're saying. You're not beating around the bush.
But I am beating around the bush all the time to help white people feel safe when I criticize them.
Unfuck the vote is not beating around the bush. Unfuck the vote is just about as front and center as it gets.
No, what's front and center is your fucking pain is in my way. That's front and center.
Your pain is in my way. Can you show that piece?
I'll show it when we go downstairs. It's not up here.
Okay.
Are you going to keep this on?
Oh,
Yeah. Who's echoing?
somebody has, is that Al? Oh,
Yeah, let's make sure
That
that
was
you're
amazing.
Yeah.
It was like a fucking science
The timing was really good, right? The timing was perfect. You want to show us some stuff?
Maybe, yeah. I just want to say, I want to clarify something. I think that like what people hear from television, from Black people they know, I mean, it could already be so thoroughly sanitized for your health and safety, and for the health and safety of all the people involved, that like you have not heard the truth of how Black people feel right now. There's a possibility, it's a distinct possibility that you have not yet heard the truth of how Black people feel right now.
I think your pain is in my way was a pretty good one.
Yeah, but that requires a little bit of context in the sense of, you know, what me beating around the bush sounds like, and then what your pain is in my fucking way really refers to, what it gets to. But what I want to draw attention to is not just my own voice, but the voice of all people of color, the voice of women when they're in male-dominated places. I want to draw attention to the way voice works. If we've said it out loud, it's already been sanitized. And if we've said it out loud and thought about it and then written it down, it's been sanitized 10 times already. And, you know, like when a woman is being harassed by a man and she wants to say, suck my dick, you know, she wants him to get out of the way, she's going to say something like, excuse me. That's been sanitized 1,000 times before the words, excuse me, with whatever terse quality is built into it.
Dina, do you want to pipe up for a second?
I was just saying to my partner, I actually say suck my dick.
I had a feeling that this was your entree right now. So that question that you just asked, can you give voice to that? Because I don't want to give you your voice. I want you to speak.
Well, I'm just curious how a designer or any creative can develop a voice so that they can actually impact society in a meaningful way. And just wondering, you know, what's your point of view on that?
I think that working hard is its own bizarre reward as a designer, because working hard means that you find a visual voice, you find a way of expressing some sort of visual rhetoric that convinces people that they've never seen this before, never read this before, never been with this before. This kind of new lover kind of smell, you know, this kind of like new intimacy with an idea. And that graphic designers in general are hooked on the idea that they may possibly bump into a style or may bump into a way of expressing themselves that looks unlike anybody else's way. It smells unlike anybody else's smell. And that other designers and other thinking persons are romantically entangled with that smell or that idea or with that visual. And so our greatest hope is to have an effect on the people who we know are paying attention, which for most of us as other graphic designers. But in the sense of society at large, speaking an unlikely truth is very helpful. An unlikely truth, not a bombastic truth, just an unlikely truth. That's enough to get people excited these days, because truthfully, there's so little actual truth being told that when you tell something from an unlikely perspective, it has a tremendous effect, you know? So when someone says, hey, how you doing? And you say, pretty good. And you say, really? And they go, yeah. You go, no, I think you're lying. You're like, what do you mean you think you're lying? You're like, and then you just say to them, well, this is why I think you're not telling me the truth. Because this is the time we live in. This is the place we live in. This is the general experience of our generation. And if you ask me, this is fucked beyond all belief. I don't know why you don't feel worse. You know, and then that uncommon truth creates an opening for people to sort of really share, you know? And so I think that on a much more significant scale, you know, someone saying it's okay to not be okay is the super light version of that. And you see that every now and then, you're like, hey, you know what? That's true. And that's a sanitized version of, you know, I'm not okay and you're definitely not okay, Whitey. Or, you know, whatever.
So how do you communicate a new truth to somebody who you know fundamentally disagrees with you?
Well, the best part of that is that you make room for the disagreement. You don't try and create a rhetorical argument. You don't try and convince anybody of anything. You just lay the truth down and let it be what it is. Rhetoric is your enemy. Rhetoric, I wrote this down, I think it's downstairs. I'm paraphrasing myself, but I said, rhetoric is a spent shotgun shell. Right? Like in the sense that like you can try and convince somebody of something, but ultimately you get one shot at that. And if you don't win, you're done.
This was what was so interesting about when I went back to teaching a few years ago, and I had a conversation with you about what it meant to teach graphic design. And you wound up spinning my head about 180 degrees on what I was thinking was the important thing to get across, because essentially what you were saying was that it was not so much about communication as it was about connection. And if you can create the opportunity for connection, then the communication followed naturally from that. It was that love against violence idea, right? Yeah. That all of the forms of violence that we're confronted with, that the weaponry against that is all the forms of love we can devise. You want to take us on a walkabout?
I think it's helpful to do that.
I think it would be.
I think it is also, just to follow up on that last point though, it's Amanda Reese in the chat writes, you can't convince people, you have to allow them to think that they've convinced themselves, which was an interesting way to kind of rephrase some of those ideas.
Well, because sometimes that violence actually takes the form of an idea that you can't stand. Right? To be confronted with an idea that you can't tolerate is perceived as violence. And that is a place where we are now. And I don't know if we know how to get out of that. And
yeah, that to that point, Connor, do you want to speak up? Connor McCutcheon has written a comment as well, I think related to what you're saying, Shasti.
Connor, would you like to say this?
Yeah, sure. I just said that there are people that I know that even if accurate facts are provided, won't listen to reason if it doesn't align with their like own political beliefs. Is there anything that you can do to speak openly with them, or do they just have to figure it out like on their own?
And this is the question, how do we call them in instead of calling them out?
Yeah, well, calling people in is just a way of just telling them the truth, you know, like that. You know, the idea that we can't agree with people, that's just got to be okay. That's just got to be okay. The problem isn't agreement. Oh, this is my office, by the way. So I'll show you my sketchbooks later, but these rails are built into my office so that my sketchbooks can be splayed, so I can mine them for ideas when I get home from travel, you know? And so the goal of these sketchbooks is to capture sort of everything that's going on while I'm on the road. And then when I get home, I tend to just kind of leave the sketchbooks on the wall for a while, and then make them useful later on. Because I make notes all the time. Like I make, this is the desk that's in front of me, like while I'm talking to you. It's just a freaking mess. It's covered with notes to myself, you know? And, you know, it's not a surprise. It shouldn't be anyway. You should have something like a 30-to-1 good idea to bad idea ratio in your head.
Signal
Like,
to quiz babies.
Yeah, 20-to-1, 30-to-1. It's totally useful. I'm going to go downstairs. I have to grab a mask. Hold on, because we do have a employee here. And then for the purpose of you guys seeing also, like, I do this on the shoulders of giants kind of conversation. This is my library right here. And that's just one of the shelves. There's about 200-300 books inside my office that I'm reading simultaneously. And then this is the other shelf. And that's not the store, that's just the shelves. So go ahead and ask a question, Johnny.
Johnny, you have a good question. I want to hear
Oh.
yours.
I'm sorry. I was just commenting on somebody else's thing here, but I had mentioned that I think a lot of the problem is in our time right now. A lot of people want to agree to disagree, and I think that's actually like a huge problem, because on a lot of these issues, there really isn't a middle. It's like things like equality and topics like that. I don't understand how you could agree to disagree. If that makes sense.
So agreeing, you can point it at the type.
How do you agree to disagree on equality?
The type.
Hold on a second. So hang tight. I'm just going to turn the volume down.
So this is one of Rick's presses in the downstairs part of his building, where he has Matter, which is his company. And
Double click the trigger to return it to where it is.
yeah, there we go.
There's a trigger back here.
Oh.
So right now, I'll just say that agreeing to disagree is just copying out. I think that making room to agree is the best thing that you can do. Because you have to let someone have their reality. if they feel like they can't have their reality, they'll just fuck with you until, you know, you concede. And that's not the goal of an argument. The goal of an argument is not to have a person concede. The goal of an argument is to teach someone something about what their reality means to someone else. Transmit, right? So in order for that reality to be useful to you, when you express it to me, it injures me at my core. I'm not going to take that away from you as a person, but I'm going to let you know that that reality injures my core, holds me and my people completely stationary, and subjugates me. So you're entitled to that reality, and I'm never going to talk you off of it. But is that what you're trying to do to me? Right? That's the question. It's not whether we agree or not. Is that your intention? Because that reality creates something. Can you aim it at this?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
There we go.
It's great. I've got a boom operator here for this.
Very novice.
It's so productive. You're able to be here for this talk and make some of your own work at the same time.
Well, it's kind of the way I roll no matter what anyway. I'd love to talk and work at the same time. Just do it. And I just figured this print out, you know, like I spent yesterday editing it over and over and over again, and I'll show you the various forms of the edit. Takes about 5 minutes to just pull the print. Hope you can be patient.
Yeah, one of my students actually brought up a really good question, which was, you know, in the age of the way that we can create, in the age of the way that we can design now with all of our digital tools, what is it about this almost anachronistic form that holds so much power for you?
Well, it's a lot slower than speaking, and it's a lot faster than writing. And if you're only going to assemble 103 letters and write one sentence at a time, it better be a damn good sentence. And so it forces quality into the moment. It forces a sense of purpose, intention, you know, into the moment. And so who doesn't want a good moment? Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want their work to have power and authority? And who doesn't want to earn it? You know? So I'm kind of a big fan of the idea that we can earn our way towards this kind of output, you know, like that it takes time and effort, but you can earn your way right there just by working hard. And this is the evidence of my hard work. This is, you know, typesetting. Has anyone ever asked themselves why books don't look like graphic design? Even graphic design books don't look like really amazing graphic design. They just look like someone else's grid.
This isn't
And so,
Twitter.
What?
I just, one of the things that one of the points I try to get across to my history of graphic design students is that it used to cost to make speeches. It used to be expensive to put your thoughts out into the public sphere because it took time and effort and consideration. And therefore, when it took time and effort and consideration, we had a tendency to trust things like books because it wasn't Twitter, the speech wasn't free to make, like talk is cheap, right? So this is sort of the where you're doing this. I'm going to shut up because I want make some noise.
Woo!
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, whatever.
Whatever.
I mean,
There's a fuzz on it.
there's a fuzz on it. It's
Oh,
gone
We
now.
haven't been able to see the whole thing. Show the whole thing.
Sorry.
Can you? Oh, there we go.
You got it? So let me show you the prints that came before it. So okay, so this is the very last print. The one before it is the one that I was sketching on, which may be, the way that this turns out. The one before it looked like that. The one before that looked like that, which without the pencil marks looks like that. And then the very, very first proof is wrought with typos and garbage and looks like that. The pencil sketch looks like that. Looks like that. Looks like that. I'm going to take you guys for a walk through the studio.
Yes,
These
please.
are the drawers where the rest of the work is. Right now we're getting some construction done, so it'll be weird, but we'll do our best. Hold on. Let me make sure that the phone is.
Oop, we just lost you.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Hold on. Okay. We should be fine. You there?
Yes.
Yeah, but we can't see your camera.
Hang tight.
There we go.
Cool. So I have a 1980s jukebox. You can ask me about that later.
Oh.
Wood type and shit.
Do you want people to continue asking questions while we're touring around, or should we wait?
No, absolutely. Chime in.
Chris, do you want to speak up, put your mic on? Yeah, it looks like you have a question that's a culmination of a lot of comments.
Sure. Mostly to expand on what Shasti was saying earlier about how there used to be a cost to writing speeches, to speaking. And I just wanted to kind of ask, just because there was a personal cost to writing a speech, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's like a reliable or honest source. I mean, there's always could be incentives or return on investment attached to that kind of work, just because there is that personal cost coming along. Like, how do you determine the reliability of that kind of work?
Determining the reliability of my work. Well, isn't that just all of it, right? There still is a cost. First of all, I mean, caring about the fact that you have a job to do and caring about its difficulty is a very particular kind of acknowledgement. Like, I care that my job is difficult. And if it was not difficult, I would not do it. I would find the more difficult version of the job and I would do that instead. So when we talk about quality, maybe we're really talking about the quality of the question, not the quality of the answer, because I would almost always help people understand that there's lots of great ways to do graphic design. But the quality of the question determines whether or not there's even the possibility of a great outcome. And I think that that's where you get that confidence. That's where you get that idea, is that, like, I have a fucking great question. And one of the great questions is, you know, like, who died and left you fucking king of everything, right? And that question is aimed at Joseph Muller-Brockman, you know? And of course you died. That made you king of everything, you know? Like, there's a certain kind of, you have to be willing to ask the question of why the definition of graphic design as kind of rendered in spray paint is not a legitimate exercise. Why graffiti and graphic design aren't better bedfellows. Why well, it's actually upstairs too. I can show it to you upstairs. But there's a whole bunch of questions that have to do with, like, this particular piece right here. It's upside down, of course. This is the plate for the piece that we were talking about earlier. Wait, now it's upside down. Silly me. You know, plates are always wrong reading. But this is the plate to that particular project. And at the end of it, it just says, you know, I dream for you to stop hurting, stop being so afraid, and get out of my way so I can do my thing, not your thing, my thing. But that should be said, your fucking pain is in my way. And it never came around to saying that. I saved that for another expression. Or this particular,
we had
or
a
this
about that though. I remember that it was that kind of like, okay, so now we understand the beating around the bush thing, right? Because your fucking pain is in my way. Is that where that is going?
Well, no, I think that is its own piece, and your pain is in my fucking way, or your fucking pain is in my way, is a different piece now. It's a different sentiment altogether. And when I say sentiment, I really actually do mean the word sentiment. Like sentiment in the form of a poster, sentiment in the form of a sentence, sentiment in the form of a handshake, you know, like all these things are sentiments. We're going to go back upstairs. I might lose you for a minute.
Show the front of the store before you go back upstairs.
Oh, show the store?
I just want people to see kind of what you've constructed here. And and what you
Yes.
next to.
So that's the storefront facing out to the street. And this is our bookstore. That is my printing press's special place in our bookstore. And there we go. CM. And, you know, like we have books like this, a zine that talks about neurodiversity, or we have a zine down here that says you're so sexy when you're not spreading STDs. You know, it's all about like not making people sick, or this zine, which is called Everyone Calls Themselves an Ally Until It's Time to Do Some Ally Shit. And then, you know, pretty good collection of other more serious zines. And then some great books written by some very brave people. And then, you know, there's a whole graphic design section too. You know, the graphic design section is actually like fairly sequestered from the activism section because it's just so weird. Like, I ran out of room in the bookstore to do all the things, so we had to just go ahead and say art and design is over here. All right, can I go back upstairs?
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
I'm just wondering, is this is all the work that is displayed there yours?
Well, no, those are all books. It's a bookstore. So the stuff that is mine, you'd have to find it. If you're downstairs, you know, you'd have to find it by opening up a drawer and digging into the drawers, like this piece, or this significantly bigger piece, which would not fit into one frame, or these pieces. And so, yeah, in the drawers, it's all my work. Outside of the drawers, it's a bookstore. And then when we go back upstairs, whatever we have there is generally, you know, it's like a combination of things. I don't like to have any of my own work in my office on the walls. I prefer to have, there we go. So I prefer to have other people's work on the walls in my office because that way I can look at it longer and enjoy it. But we can show you some work. I mean, that's a perfectly legitimate question. Like, what qualifies you to actually have this conversation with us, Mr. Griffith? That's a pretty good question. I think it's honest too. Okay, hang tight. We'll pull up some work.
I mean, I just asked because just the title, You're So Sexy When You Aren't Transmitting STDs. I mean, I understand it's a sort of a comic book for sexual health education that is much needed in this world. I just find it super offensive, like oppressive in so many ways. So I was just wondering like how these things were actually chosen to be put in store or not, especially that you're so political. So I would expect a really high curation of what's happening there. And I find it offensive because I feel like we're in 2020 and STDs fucking exist. So yeah, it's just alienating. It's the same process that, you know, alienates every single population that gets alienated for a particular thing that is considered as wrong or right. but that's just my point of view.
Oh, you're muted, honey.
Oh no, I was done.
No, good, me.
No, Rick was muted.
I'm not the honey, sorry.
There we go. So, can you hear me now? Okay, good. So the zine that is called You're So Sexy When You're Not Transmitting STDs is by a woman named Isabella Rotman. And she has a movement that is about women's health. And the book is written for a woman to use the language in that book to talk to her sexual partners before she engages in intercourse with them. And so it helps bring power to young women who are investigating sexual opportunities and don't have quite the words to talk about the need for people to protect themselves from STIs and STDs. And so while the title may sound very aggressive, it's actually part of a series of books that Isabella Rotman writes for women. One of them is called Lady Parts, like a Vagina Haver's Handbook. Another one is called The Consent Cavalry, talking about witnessing consent and specifically what to do if you witness someone who is being sexually approached without their consent. And so it's very interesting that you have this take on it that is not, that is oppressive, but it's exactly the opposite set of tools that's been written by a woman who is very focused on equity amongst women. And so that's one of the areas that we focus on is feminism and queer politics, Black politics, Jewish politics, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I'm sure that you would expect me to be better curated than oppressing other people. I'm sure that that's the case. And as it turns out, it is.
Can you put, why am I echoing in your space? That's very strange.
I don't know.
Does Rick have both his phone
it's
and
possible the phone is still on, but
no, the phone is off.
okay. The Isabella Rothman, I just want to put that in the chat because it wasn't in the previous list, and so I want to make sure we don't miss that.
Yeah, go ahead. I can find it for you. Hold on.
So that actually leads into a really another interesting thread, which is this idea of standing, right? That when speaking on certain subjects and these notions of allyship, who gets to talk about what is starting to get to be a really interesting conversation in and of itself. And taking that on, right? Like one of my favorite of your pieces was "Let's unfuck this sexist bullshit."
Yes.
And I love you for that. I love you for being able to put that, to articulate that in a loud, broad, beautiful way. But then we get into that territory of on whose behalf do you speak? And there's a lot of fraught territory there, in terms of, like that making space, taking up room, being loud, being heard. One of the things that I love about the work that you do is just the size doesn't brook any argument, right? It's just so incontrovertible. And that's one of the lovely reasons to keep letterpress going, is that it has a visceral impact.
Yeah, true. To satisfy the question of what does the work look like, I'll give you guys just a little teaser of some of the work, but you can see it on our website, right? Like there's a link for that too. You just go to our website and see a bunch of our work. In the event that you haven't done that and you wonder what we've made, you know, I take very specific issue with the idea that graphic design doesn't live in a vacuum. It lives inside of a world that includes art and art concepts. And so most good graphic design borrows an art concept from someplace. And in this case, we're using surrealism to communicate this furniture and how the furniture behaves instead of how people behave. People photography is very expensive and very difficult, but just having body parts communicating is very cheap comparatively. And so, you know, this is how we sell furniture. And we borrow from surrealism, right? And then when it's time to say something, we say, you have shit and we have a place to put your shit. And that's it, you know, and these are albums, right? These are all perfectly sized for albums, but you can imagine that they're also perfectly sized for glasses and dishes and so on and so forth. You know, like we also live in a world where like cynicism is real. And so we built this applause light as a award for the Art Directors Club, right? And so you can hook this up to the clapper, literally, and you can actually applause to turn on the light. It's ridiculous, but it's also steeped in our contemporary culture. You know, it's not lost on me that that's a picture of a cake drawn with type, and the name of the company is called Sweet as Pie. Yeah, it's not lost on me. Irony is funny, right? And some of the stickiest logos out there are going to have some ironic expression. This is a movie poster that we did, and also the title sequence for it was built with wood type as well. I typed and reset and typeset the same thing 8 times so that we could have these perfectly slow dissolves. The entire soundtrack was written by Iron and Wine, which some of you guys might know. You know, super slow music, super low energy. These are some posters, you know, like women and their hairdos, right? Like women's work. We could definitely go into the conversation about like stitching and sewing machines and other, you know, feather dusters, maids' aprons, all sorts of things that connote the concept of women's work. But I love the idea of someone saying, I have to get my hair done. And that is also part of the irony of women's work. And this is an art museum. And so again, we kind of lean into irony here. This is a restaurant ID that we did called The Populist. We basically sort of named the populist as a person who is very interested in collecting things. Not the populist in the sense of Donald Trump being a populist in the political sense, but the populist as a person who loves popular culture, who engages in multiples. And so all the erasers and what do you drink out of? You drink out of glasses. What are those pictures of? Spectacles. What's another word for spectacles? Glasses. Exactly. We all move on.
No, I don't think so much irony as humor. I mean, the interesting thing about irony is how lately it's been bludgeoned, right? Like there's irony is bludgeoning us as we speak. But I never detect any cynicism in the world.
Yeah, cynicism is bad for everybody.
But irony and cynicism are kind of bedfellows, right?
Cynicism and sarcasm are bedfellows. Irony is a cousin, and it's the cousin that shows. The irony is the cousin that shows up, is quiet, and just observes everything, and then later on has a quiet giggle to themselves. Like irony doesn't participate. Cynicism and sarcasm are loudmouths, and they participate all the time, and they need to be shut the fuck down. They're horrible. But irony is the cousin who doesn't talk, just observes.
Okay, I like that. I'll take it.
This is a custom typeface that we made for a restaurant that's a bakery that told us that they wanted to be lodged somewhere between Italian futurism and French surrealism. And so we made a fully ugly typeface so that people can be thinking about ugliness as well as beauty, and then just enjoy these ugly pizzas and enjoy this artisanal bread, right? This is some type work that we've done for the grandson of Charles Eames and his first wife, Lucia. And this person is an ongoing client. He's a terrific friend, and we help him tell stories
that don't hurt people.
Yeah, generally speaking, it's an elaborate form of fiction. These are like gift certificates made out of laser etched wood. We figured like the gift certificate itself would never be lost if it was made out of something really heavy and big. And so people would spend it. But the good news was whenever they spent it, these were completely recyclable, because the client would get them back and then they would be able to sell them again. So even though they were very expensive gift certificates, you only needed like 2 or 3 dozen in rotation at any given time. And it was basically spending like money.
So we have a lot of people on the chat who are looking at the work that you're making, looking at the studio that you're working in, and this, you know, your office, your space, the world that you have created for yourself. And I'm seeing a lot of, I want that for myself. And it would be lovely if you talked a little bit about how you got there. Like, you know, what are I mean, you told me this wonderful story about getting fired, which sort of set you on the road to being independent, and what you've created, and what kind of agency that gives you.
So I think what happened for me fairly early in my career was that I was given like these choices. And I don't know how many of you guys relate to the world the way I do, but I think a certain kind of relating to the world through that lens is helpful. And that is this: people will always offer me less than I'm worth. And it's my job to be in a position to say no. It's no one else's job to help me say no. It's just mine. And when I say less than I'm worth, I mean, like, let's play a game, right? It's called Fiverr. What would you do for $5? Well, the list of things that I would do for $5 is kind of small, in the sense of it can't be that significant, because at the end of the day, I'm just going to go get my own $5. I'm going to make it some other way, the way I want to, right? So let's take, I don't know, Samantha, you're paying attention. Yes, you. What would you do for $100 in the world of graphic design? Like, what's the thing? Like, if I say, hey, I want a logo, would you charge me $100 for it?
Maybe, I don't know.
Well, what don't you know?
I mean, it depends on like what the logo's for.
Why?
I don't know.
So I'm going to use that small example, and thank you for playing along. I appreciate you very much. Not knowing.
Can you please get me some water?
Hi, Brianna. Not knowing the answer to that question is like what can I get for $100? Or not knowing why something costs something different to something else. it's weird space. Many people think that it's all in the context of the conversation, the other person through that wall, right? It's all about what I bring to that request. But it isn't. It's got nothing to do with what I want. It's got everything to do with what you're prepared to do. And if you don't know the answer to what you're prepared to do just yet, it's okay. You got a couple of years, a couple of semesters, a couple of something. You've got time. But so help me, in your senior year, in your final semester, if you don't know the answer to what $100 gets me in graphic design, then you haven't done the work. And the work in this particular situation is called self-knowledge. It's just self-knowledge. It's not knowledge of the market. It's not knowledge of the opportunity. It's not knowledge of the project. It's just self-knowledge. And the way that you approach money and the way that you approach people baiting you with money, right? Like someone being like, yeah, I'm only going to pay $500 for that logo. And if you're like the person who's like, $500 gets me exactly where I want to go right now. It pays the rent and it pays some utilities. And I'm ready to do this logo right now. If that makes sense to you, then do it. But at the point that for some reason, any reason, half a reason, it doesn't make sense to you, you got to back out. You got to walk away and say, $500 doesn't get you started with me, Home Slice. Done. Talk to the hand. I'm out. You've got to be able to use your self-knowledge and the knowledge of where you are in your life to help guide you towards better and good decisions. And those good decisions are all about what gets you to the next level. So what I did for myself fairly early on was I sort of looked at the framework of projects that I wanted to do. And I said, well, the three things that I don't want to do right now is I don't want to work for people who can't be made happy. Right? I got to work for people I trust, that I can make happy, that I can actually service them well. So I have to have a really good no, just in case that person who I can't help shows up. And so this is what I did. Whoops. Hold on. Maybe I don't even have a copy of that close by. Hold on, let's see. So when I send people my contract, I actually don't have it. It's so funny, I just ran out. When I send people my contract, the first page says, this is yes. Because I believe that there is a path to success for both of us. That's it. I let someone know that this is the big, yes, I'll do your project. Now, you can amplify your choices by talking about the no, and you can amplify your choices by amplifying the yes. I found that by amplifying the no, it drew people into a negative experience. Like there was this sort of atmosphere of negativity, which if you're saying yes to someone, it's not even needed. You know, if you're saying no, you get to that because you're going to say no, and that's the way it is. But if you're saying yes, you actually need to amplify what it is you will do, not what it is you will not do. So I found a way of amplifying the yes energetically and pushing that forward. And there is a no. And the reason why I say no is I don't think I'm a good fit for this project. Let me turn you on to somebody else who might be better for you. And usually I name a design studio who I don't like very much. Usually I name a design studio who thinks a lot of themselves, who's very expensive, who's like, you know, gonna give those guys a little bit of ego check.
right? Because that's where the people who you don't want to work with should go. They should go meet someone who's a bigger baller than them. You know, they should absolutely, right. Youch. But yeah, so I basically learned to say no a few different ways, but I say no predominantly because of what I call the bad culture fit, which is I don't trust you. You said a bunch of words, you thought that they were meaningful, you broed it out with me, and I'm not a bro. So guess what happens? I don't want to work with you, right? Or you might say something that's misogynistic, and I basically go, yeah, if you're going to injure my sisters in this, I don't want to work with you, right? Or I could be working with someone who is a Jew and they are a Zionist, and I don't want to work with Zionists, you know? Like, I'm a Jew too, so it's not about being a Jew, it's about being a fucking Zionist. And I'm a black person too, and I don't work with all black people. I don't want to work with people who are going to steal from me. You know, and some people, whether they're black, white, Jewish, or otherwise, they steal. And so you got to have great ways of like feeling that out and pushing that away from you. And this self-knowledge is critical to how you say yes, how you engage. And learning the hard way, yes, always going to happen. But what I love about learning the easy way is that you say to yourself, well, if I do business with this person, they're not happy, that $500 never makes it to me. I still don't have what I want, and I've spent all that time. There it is, the loss. There it is, the cost, you know?
So there's the cost of saying no. Jaden, do you want to ask Rick your question? Because I think it's an important one.
Yeah, Jaden, what's up? Where you at?
So my question was just like, I feel like you're at a point that a lot of us are not. So saying no to a project may not be easy for us. So was there ever a time where you feel like maybe you had to sell yourself out in a way, I guess, or kind of go with a project that you didn't agree on because other opportunities weren't around at the time?
So I learned how to say no from one opportunity in particular, which was saying yes to working for an advertising agency in New York City on Madison Avenue. In the remnants of the leftovers of Mad Men or whatever garbage that is, you know, it's still a wholly patriarchal system and sexism wins and blah, 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 whatever. So I went to work for these guys, and it was my first job. It was my first real job, real wheels job. And it paid more money than my kid is earning right now, living in Brooklyn, working in New York City. It pays more than she earns today, and it was 30 years ago. By the hour. And I had as many hours as I wanted. So I showed up in that joint and I did a bunch of work, and then all that misogyny started to show up and all that stuff started to show up. And as it put itself in front of me and I disagreed with it, I basically pulled myself back just a little bit every time so I wouldn't have to argue with people about where my threshold was for that kind of action, right? And then at one point I withdrew so much that people said, Rick's not a team player anymore. And that's pretty much what you want people to say about you in a place that people go to make bad life decisions, right? You just want them to say, Rick's not one of us. Damn fucking straight, he's not one of us. Right? And so I did do that, and I made some money, and I did pretty well. I bought a computer, which was what I needed, and then I had about 6 months worth of rent, like, put away. Jaden, in all honesty, it wasn't 6 months worth of rent. It was actually 3 months worth of therapy, just for full disclosure. It ended up being 3 months worth of therapy. And I stretched it out to 6 months worth of therapy by going a little less frequently. And with this self-knowledge and with this conflict,
And then with therapy, the whole person who you see in front of you began to develop. You're right. I am at a place now that you guys are not in. But here's the thing. I am more in the same situation that you're in now than I was then. I have projects coming out of my ass. I have so much work to do, and so little of it pays at all. I sleep well at night. I choose to work with the people I work with. The rest of the time, I end up writing myself weird notes and trying to articulate this voice, this stylistic thing that is part of me, but is also like total fucking baggage. Like I look at style as being a huge burden right now. I hate style. I hate it all. I hate it because I'm trying to talk about some serious shit right now, and like I'm choosing a typeface for what is serious shit in a typeface. Give me a break. How do you? What's the right typeface to say bigot? You fucking bigot, right? What's the right typeface to say that in? You know?
Oh, I have prizes if you want to give out some prizes.
That's true. We can give away some prizes. I would take a yeah.
Walk.
Yeah, of course. There is that, which is
I have those to give away.
Okay, cool. The question that someone just asked is, do I consider myself thick-skinned? No, I'm super sensitive. I'm incredibly sensitive. But what you experience here is reality. Like I'm all of this, and I'm not more. I'm just all of this. And when I say I'm sensitive, it's this whole idea of annotating my own work or revising my own work or checking my own work for tone or checking my voice for tone. All of that comes from someone who is pretty sensitive because I don't want to be misunderstood, right? Like my least favorite thing is to be misunderstood. I want people to know that I'm a huge lover of all things. Huge. Like I love so much that it makes me like crazy how much I'm in love with stuff. Like the books behind me, I could show you favorite parts of those books with no trouble at all. I could tell you why I love that book. I could tell you what about this moment means so much to me. And I'm such an emotional being. But at the same time, the idea that I'm thick-skinned comes from this life that I've lived doing both the things, sanitizing my opinion and preparing my opinion for public sort of consumption, as well as like sort of unsanitizing my opinion and unsanitizing my ideas and just letting them go and just being like, I've had enough of protecting people from what is a reasonable thought, right? I've had enough of that. And so my goal in all of that is to be 100% of me and then just take the cost of that and subtract it from my future earnings. So be it, right? Because I've already sent my kids to college. I'm fucking done. I'm done with bullshit, right? And so I'm back in with you guys. Like someone says, hey man, you want to make me a logo? I'm like, who are you? Why should I give a shit? And he's like, well, I'm doing this coalition for the homeless thing. I'm like, okay, I'm down. Good. Let's get it done. Let's rock it out. And I'm not thinking about money. And then there are moments where like now I'm saying to myself, and you wouldn't believe this, Jaden. You wouldn't believe this. I have done the math, and I've done the math for the last 20 years. I only need 19 more clients in my whole fucking life if I keep clients at the same rate that I've historically kept clients. I need 19 more clients for my whole life. Because my average client acquisition against client attrition versus the amount of money that they're worth versus the projects that we do, the lifespan of a client, the relationship, all those things added up, and how much more money I need to make to be happy. It's 19 more people I got to get along with famously that are gonna pay my way, and then I'm good. Whereas before I got into the game the way I am, I didn't count that. I just said a lot of yeses, and and I brought myself up, and I had a lot of capitalistic action. These days I'm doing what I'm calling eating the salad. Like, capitalistic action, non-capitalistic action, anti-capitalistic action, barter, trade, favors, all of those things are real to me. Gifts, prizes, they're all real to me. They're not all capitalistic. They're just different ways of transacting with people. I don't know. Did we get that? Did we cover some shit?
Definitely. Thank you.
So
yeah, it's wild. It's a very interesting place. I think that, like, the other reason why I'm in a similar place to where you guys are right now is that my life is overwhelmed with scholarship and research right now. And that I am reading a ton, writing a ton, doing research, going into places that I didn't expect to find myself. And this is interesting. All right, so Shasti just shared
all of it.
All of it. That was a big blast.
I don't want anybody to miss any of it.
That's exactly how I'll miss it. So the first 4 links in that are projects that I do actively. So BLARP, the Black Astronaut Research Project, is a real project. It's blarp.org. And that particular project is all about teaching people about the 15 Black astronauts that we have and the other 42 Black astronauts we have in fiction that are embedded in what's called a post-racial science fiction narrative. And so I like to talk about post-racial narratives in the world of science fiction because there is no post-racial narrative on the planet that I live on right now. In this time, in this timeline, in this place, there is no post-racial narrative. We're completely in a racial narrative. Theamalgamated.org is my attempt to bring a bunch of printers together to be activists and to make room for, dang, Cheng Hao, that was an enormous yawn. I love the look of that yawn. That was like such a big face yawn. Right, Chen? Anyway, so, yeah, buddy, that's you. I don't think it's registering with him. Anyway, it's fine. The idea that like we are that we have these tools called printing presses and that we can be activated and we could be made to do good things with them is super important to me. And even if it's a sentiment in the form of a poster that says "Go fuck yourself," so be it. But in my mind, and I can't be talked off of it just because I'm a human being. In my mind, we are doing the good work. The reason why I know we're doing the good work is because we include everybody we can find in that work. We do it on behalf of and with Indigenous people. We do it on behalf of and with women. We do it on behalf of and with Black people. We do it on behalf of and with Latinx people, queer people, et cetera, et cetera. We hold the space for all of this, and this is what convinces me that we're doing the right thing, right? Because we do hold that space. I don't know if it's 100% the right thing, but it's enough of the right thing that I'm okay with it. And that's what I work towards at this point, is good design should have no victims. That is all of it. And at this age, I don't want to put victims into the world. I don't want to make victims out of people. It just doesn't make any sense to me. At your age, I would really hope that you're thinking along the same lines, that you don't want to make victims out of people either. And it's my great hope that you see that you have this potency with your talent, you have this potency with your labor to make demands of the people who would buy it. And I know it's hard that like I'm in a different place and you're in a different place, but I would want as many of you as possible to figure out how to participate in this economy with a variety of different actions, not just capitalistic action.
Yeah, you're my favorite person.
Yeah, you're losing people, Rick.
Oh,
I think that's a really great place to that's a really wonderful way to conclude. Are there any questions from the audience that they would like to pipe up and ask?
yeah, some things were answered along the way incidentally, and some things maybe if we didn't get to them, maybe we can re-articulate them now.
I'm interested in what Miss Carabello thinks. Kira. Nothing? Okay. I just saw you paying a lot of attention, so I was like, okay.
I have a question.
Yes, who's that?
Hi, I'm McKenna, the one with the crazy background. I put this in the chat, but are your thoughts still the same? Because what you talked about earlier, what are your thoughts on unpaid internships? Do you still have that same feeling like you mentioned earlier, or is it a different narrative? Because I know a lot of people, me included, really try to avoid unpaid internships because there's a lot of factors that play into it. It's like I like right now, like I would like the experience because unfortunately a lot of companies are like, you need at least 5 years of experience, and I'm just like, that's why I'm here, to get more experience. So what are your thoughts about that? Do you still have that same mentality, or is it different?
Well, full disclosure, I used to offer the most amazing internship here, and it was completely unpaid. And the only reason why I changed my mind about it was because one of the people that came to work for me said, you do realize, Rick, that the young version of you wouldn't be able to work here. And I was like, fuck my life. I'm such a hypocrite. I'm such a douchebag. I'm such a dickhead. Just because the rest of the industry does this doesn't mean I have to.
Right.
Changing forever. That's it. Paid internship, and we don't pay minimum wage at all. We have a aggressively livable wage for the internship. Now, don't get me wrong. I will work you like a rented mule, but you will get paid by the hour. You can only work up to between 24 and 37 hours a week. You're eligible for benefits as soon as they kick in. And the internship is 6 months long, and you are qualified for a job at that point if you want to work with us. You get a couple of weeks off in between to figure out if you want to or not want to work with us, if you want to go on a trip, take a break before you get into your professional career. But yeah, we used to do that, and it was so wrong for lots of reasons. But the one that really resonated with me was that the young version of me couldn't even work here. You know?
I think you're gonna be receiving 140 resumes tomorrow.
Well, look, here's the thing. Denver's a nice place to be. And the odds are that we might be looking for an intern. And it's not great work that gets you the internship, although it can have something to do with it, especially if it's super competitive. What is going to happen is that you have to be in a matrix of self-knowledge. You have to be interested in self-knowledge. You have to know who you are or want to know who you are. And You have to be absolutely fantastic as a person. You have to be an A+ human being. You have to never tell me lies, right? Because lies are bullshit. Lies are unnecessary, right? So I won't look at your resume because the resume is the first place you told your first lie. And I don't want to see your lies. And, you know, and what happens is that if you have a skill that we want to make, like, amplify in the 6 months that you're here, then we'll hire you. You know, like we have a laser downstairs. There are so many products that I want to make on the laser, and I don't have all the time to make those products. So if you come to us with laser operating skills and a bunch of other stuff going on, we're like, what? That'd be great, you know? Or if you come to us with like an enormous interest in intellectual sort of, you know, intellectualism and books and stuff like that, we're like, okay, well, you can work for 24 hours in the design studio if you want to, and we'll even give you a pickup shift in the bookstore if that makes you happy, so you can get like a discount on books, you know, things like that. But you have to be a really interesting and interested person. That's the number one criteria. Unfortunately, if you find yourself as a sort of habitual liar, the first lie you tell me gets you fired. The first one. Kind of problematic for those people who are used to sort of being ahead of themselves by a few yards, you know? And that as an attitude is like, you can be ahead of yourself, but if you tell me a lie in order to stay ahead of yourself, that's going to cost you the opportunity.
You need to tell the get fired story.
You mean the time that I got fired by a client, or the last time I got fired from the last job I ever had?
The last time you got fired from the last job you ever had.
Oh, it's so mean. It's so terrible. I did a bad thing. I did a very, very, very bad thing. Nobody wants to hear this. It's completely out of character.
The one, is this the being late one, or is this that was the client one?
No, that's the client one.
Okay. Tell the client one. I don't want the mean one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the last job that I got fired from, I was such a prick, but it was really funny. And that was like 1991. That was the last job I had. So someone asked me what the best advice I ever got was. And the best advice that I ever got was given to me by a client as they were firing me. They said, "Rick, you are a pleasant person to spend time with. I like you so much. Rick, you are profoundly talented. And I would pay twice as much for your work if it was on time. You're fired." And the reason why I got fired was because I couldn't help my client look good at their job. I kept on making promises that I didn't keep. It'll be with you on Tuesday. It was Tuesday. It was midnight on Tuesday. It was 4:00 in the morning on Wednesday, but before I sent it over. I was being too precious with everything, and I was not being precious with my word. And so, you know, as it turns out, my father, who was wrong about a lot of things, wasn't really wrong about the notion that like your good name and the truths that you tell and the promises that you make and keep will define you to most people. And so, you know, a promise not kept is a lie. So make less promises and keep every single one of them, you know? And don't be precious with design, and don't be not precious with your word, right? Your word as a human being, you're like what you have to offer the world as a human being is way more important than this week's latest Photoshop trick, this week's latest Illustrator trick. You know, like, don't worry about that stuff. It'll come to you and you'll get better at graphic design. But you have to have this self-knowledge that holds you accountable for being a powerful and good person. You know? I mean, imagine this. Imagine working for the nonprofit organization of your dreams. Imagine doing something that is like so powerful and so good for so many people. And then imagine doing it 5 minutes late and losing an election over it. Right? The person that was, you know, like Clinton's strategist 4 years ago, like, just didn't get it. And it cost the country so much, right? You want to be impeccable with who you are so that when you do stuff that's at high stakes, that you're doing your absolute best, right? And that the people who are in receipt of your best work can say that they are in receipt of great things. That's where you want to be with it all. And if you're trying to be a better graphic designer all the time, just like me, then try. Be a better graphic designer just like me all the time. I'm working so hard at it. I'm making mistakes just to get them out of the way. Like a motherfucker like me shouldn't be doing like 8 drafts of a 21-word poster. Unless, of course, when you comes to the top in this really big YOU, right? You treat me like my people invented in their worst instincts every type of violence. Well, the you part of it makes it all sound so petty. All those you statements, you treat me like this, fuck that. You comes nice and small, and it's not treat me, it's fear me. That's the right word. You fear me as if not my people, my people, because all people invented fucking violence, but my people inventing violence makes a difference. And when a Black person says, you fear me because you believe that Black people invented every form of violence, that sticks. That makes sense. And when a white person says, you fear me because you believe that white people invented violence, guess what? Also true. It's also true. It's why we can't seem to figure it out, is because there is this fear. And so being treated a certain way in draft numbers 1 through 6, nah, that's not even sharp enough. It's about fear. And when you use the right word and you de-emphasize the part that belongs to someone else and you emphasize the part that belongs to you, and when you bring all of that into focus and try and bring the idea that my people is a real term for immigrants, it's a real term for people of color, it's a real term that like people understand when they understand themselves and their histories. When you bring that into focus, the idea of it saying, you treat me like this, and then you fear me because of this, they're very, very different ideas, and they're separated by one word and one slightly different color on the page. And so, yeah, I'm making mistakes all the time just so I can get them out of the way. I'm examining myself all the time just so I can be better and more responsible with my words and my work. And if you're the person that writes themselves drawings or writes themselves sketches with words, draft after draft after draft is going to be important. Refinement is an important ability that you're going to need it if you're going to find your own voice, because the other voice wasn't even me. I'm not out there whining that you do something to me. I don't give a fuck what you do, right? But what I care about is what we think of each other, how we behave with each other. You fear me because. I fear you because. Yeah. Because someone related to you invented every conceivable form of violence. That goes a long way to explaining why fear is a real thing. And I'm proud of that idea, and I'm less proud of draft number 6 out of 8. So if I'm going to give you any encouragement whatsoever, it is the encouragement to really know yourself in order to know which voice you want to put forward. Know yourself so you're less clumsy with the most important things you're going to say, you know, because you do have important things to say, every one of you. And whether you have the courage to say it, that's one part of it. Whether you have the self-knowledge to say it well, that's another part of it. Whether someone gives you a platform with which to project it, that's another part of it. Whether you have your own printing press, self-sufficiency, make your own platform, blah, blah, blah. That's what I did. That's some part of it. And so I get confidence from a bunch of places, including the fact that I own my own printing press. And the internet is supposed to give you guys all the confidence you need as well, except for that there's so many damn lies on the internet that you don't know how you're supposed to make good stuff out of it, right? So maybe you do it with handwriting. Maybe you do it with hand-drawn type. Maybe you do it with a spray can. Maybe you do it with something else that takes time and effort and energy.
Tell the tools what to do. Don't let the tools tell you what to do.
Yeah, but knowing yourself so well that you can actually articulate yourself is so good for you. And other people are attracted to people who know themselves because they know that their best work is better than the person who does not know themselves. Right?
Right.
I want to encourage you guys to practice. I want to encourage you guys towards design, of course. And also I want to encourage you guys to find the thing that you do so well that you enjoy, because, you know, the 10,000 hours that you spend being good at something are actually 10,000 hours sucking at it, just loving it so much, right? I prepared a little something because style is such an enormous burden. I prepared just a tiny bit of something. Hold on a second. Okay. I hope, this is going to be tricky. You ready for a little adventure? It's our parting gift.
Go for it.
Here is my adventure. Boom. Boom, boom, and boom, and hold on a second. Oh, come on, give me a break. Nope. All right, stop. Hold on. There it is. And what is the signal for that? That is, no, it's just right there. Okay, hold on. Yeah, maybe I can do that. Start speaking. Okay. Sorry, just hold on. Thanks. How about we do a recursive feedback loopy thing like that? And then maybe, yes, here we go.
Hi, I am and have been in love with design for so long that I can't imagine a life without it. And I can't imagine a life where I don't love it as much as anyone I've ever met. Don't get me wrong, I hear people talk about it with passion and purpose, and in some instances their words were poetry. And even though I think in my best effort as a mediocre poet, I would still love design more. I can't explain it. What I can explain though, is that this year and this experience has brought so much to the surface for me, and one thing that has erupted is a kind of care I like to give to design, a kind of stern talking to as I get older, and it seems to want to participate, with capitalism, in all the domains of our lives, and even take on some ideas of its own. AI. But today I'll talk to designers, and I'll talk to design again tomorrow. Designers, stop performing empathy so badly. Stop thinking you are expressing empathy in your work, The odds are actually well against that.
Did you get that? I said at the end, I say,
comma is going to be a t-shirt, by the way. You now actually have to set that in type. You gotta put that on a fucking t-shirt. You have to put that on please, I have to have it.
what I want you guys to do is know that really and truly, in our hearts, empathy is easy. In our hearts and our relationships, empathy is easy. You know you're doing it well because you get feedback from so many people when you do it. McKenna, can you just stop laughing for a minute? God damn.
Have you looked at the chat? Comma, like everybody just fucking loves it. I mean,
that lit up the switchboard.
The problem with design right now is that you're being told that empathy works in design. And I agree that empathy does work in design, but without real professional, honest to goodness training on what empathy is, you can't get it into design as an amateur. You just have to be honest with yourself about what it is that you're trying to do and hope that empathy shows up. And the reason why I say that is because empathy done poorly is sympathy. Sympathy done poorly is pity. And nobody needs that. Don't think that you're being empathetic. Don't design something as if you're being empathetic. There's no feedback to tell you the truth of that. It's not real life. Design is a hypothesis. And so be careful as you move this kind of action forward. Be careful as you intend to create empathy. What you really should intend to do is be whole and complete in yourself and your action. If empathy is there, I promise it'll show up. But you can't design empathy. You can only design its poorly dressed cousin, sympathy, and its bare naked cousin, pity. And the reason why pity is so bad for everyone is because all it does is become reflective. It just turns itself back on the maker, and it shows the shortcomings of the maker. It shows the shortcomings of the person who made it, who created it, how little they know themselves and how little they know about their circumstance. And you don't want to do that. So being honest is better than being empathetic. Just think about that as you move it forward. That is the beginning of our new wave of design, is honesty over empathy, poorly executed empathy as well. But thank you for your time this evening. All 142 remaining of you, in the sense that we did start this out with 152 people and we just lost a couple along the way, and that's okay with me. Amelia St. Peter, thank you so much for your attention. Douglas Connor, thank you so much for your attention. Zamy Morales, thank you so much for your attention.
Well, we all thank you. We really appreciate how generous and
Bryce
wonderful this talk has been. This meeting with you has been. And Shasti as well.
Juliana Rizzo, thank you. Lauren Wolf, I love that. Brooke Ridgway, thanks for the hearts. Lauren Wolf, your picture right now is exactly what my kids do with me every Saturday when we FaceTime. They just show me their forehead. Yeah, thanks for that. I'd like to see more of your ceiling and your forehead, please. That's perfect. Sam, peace. Najaya, is that your name? Thank you. Tell me how to say your name. Let me get it right.
This is Nija.
Nija, fine, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Taryn, thank you. Stella O, thank you.
Have a good
Yeah.
night. Thank you for everything.
Perfect. Pierce Jones, thank you. Cody, thank you. Andrew, thank you. Anthony, thank you. Severin Lafont, whoa, thank you.
Thank you.
Cameron, thank you. Beatrice, thank you for the wave. Andrea, thank you. Man, so many nice people here. Mimi, thank you. Izzy, thank you. Zachary, thank you. Jack, woof. Whatever. Lucas Cook, nice hat.
Douglas is looking for the after party.
Lucas, the after party's right here. I'll send you my Zoom link. Hold on.
Yeah, no, ordinarily we would be going out to dinner and inviting a few of these kids with us.
Oh, really? Oh, JJ's got a cute dog in there. Dogs of Zoom. Hi, Shirley.
Cameron, I'm really glad that you were here for this. This is what I was talking about.
Eric Gilbert, thank you for
Yeah,
your
me
time and
too. I was really
attention.
confused on everything, so this helped me a lot.
I'm really, you've been doing amazing and I'm so proud of you. And it
Oh,
means
wait,
a
hold
lot to
on. So proud of you. I've got a card for that. Here it is.
Aw.
Yeah. And also, you know,
That's a good one.
way to squash that shit.
Oh,
Now-
the biggest block posters. I think what I'm gonna do is I'll draw names from a hat because everybody's been so awesome.
Well, since we can't all go out to dinner, it looks like Ethan's offering to cook a Zoom dinner for everyone following the talk.
Ethan, where are you? Where are you? Let's see. Ethan. I gotta find you. Hold on. I'm coming around, Ethan. Let's pin Ethan. Someone pin Ethan. Don't.
I gotta find him first.
Yeah, the
Ethan,
Ethan's
wave.
fun.
Wave, Ethan, wave.
Oh,
There you go.
Florence, did that cute puppy eat Ethan?
Look, it's Ethan. Hi, Ethan.
Hey,
Where's Ethan?
right here.
Here.
Someone's saying right here, but I have not seen them yet.
Look in the gallery view. Ethan, you gotta wave again.
Yep.
Ah,
There he is.
right on. Okay, what are we having for dinner, Ethan?
Just make a list and we'll jot it down. We'll bring something. It's got to be cheap because with everything going on, I don't think we can all afford everything.
I agree. Let's just do like spaghetti, but I like some sausage in my spaghetti. I like the spicy Italian sausage. And the rigatoni, because the sauce sticks better to the rigatoni.
Rigatoni.
You know, like, who fucks with spaghetti anymore? You all fuck with spaghetti?
Of
Who fucks with
course.
spaghetti?
I do.
Make it
Is that Amanda saying that she does or does not? Douglas is like, I don't fuck with spaghetti. I get that.
How dare you? Spaghetti's amazing.
Spaghetti's
hand
amazing.
make it
Who
with
is that?
hand make it with a crank, and then that's how you
That
make
shit's old school.
Oh, yeah, no, that's true. Cassandra is like, why do you make fun of my people? What's going on? No, it's not all pasta that's terrible. Just I think of spaghetti as being like unnecessary.
It's meh. It's meh compared to like rigatoni.
You know why spaghetti is unnecessary? Here's why. Because I think of spaghetti as ramen noodles without the curl. That's what I think.
That's
Because
ooh.
ramen noodles have this tight little curl. That you're like,
Those are fighting words, baby. Those are fighting words.
rigatoni lover.
You're doing some
Bow tie pasta all the way. Bow ties all the way.
You know what? You're 100% right about bow tie. Bow tie.
Unmatched.
Bow tie's all right. That's all right. Like, is it for real? Like, you people in upstate New York do this all day? Like, oh, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like,
It's the wrong part of New York.
Well, it's not Little Italy. It's just the rest of New York. I think that there are a lot of Italians in New York State. Period. I really think there are.
And they all take
a lot of Italians everywhere.
seriously.
So you are going to be back next week, right?
I'm Just so that, yeah, for the 66 people still on the line, you should know this. I do answer my emails. And so my email is in the chat right now.
Well, that's dangerous.
Fuck that shit. Don't worry about it.
You're about to get like 66 emails.
I just sent that directly to Cassandra. Sorry. Hold on. Cassandra is now the only.
Nah, I'm the VIP. I'm the VIP.
You're like, she'll take it. She'll
Just
take
me,
it.
just
Like,
me.
it's mine. It's mine. It's mine.
Hold on. So I do answer my emails, and when people ask me for critiques, I kind of give them the truth. I have a policy about lying to people who are younger than me. I just don't do it. It doesn't make any sense. What I got to prove to you, you know? The hope is that like we find a community in ourselves that is kind of helpful in some way, right? I can't be everything to you guys, but I can just be something. McKenna, I see you like Wang, Yibo, and Tang.
We're not gonna get it. We're not gonna get into that. That's a long story. It's my background. Don't.
I like it too. Don't worry. I like it too.
Oh, is that a K-pop background or is that something else?
Okay, let me give you the short version. Okay,
Kind
so
of like-
the Untamed is a Chinese drama based off of a novel, and it's super popular. While Wang Yibo was in a K-pop group, he does a lot of stuff in China nowadays.
Okay, got it. So it's a crossover between some martial arts fiction cinema stuff and some K-pop stuff.
Yes. Kind of. Well, there's not a lot of K-pop in it. It's just.
There's no K-pop in it at all. It's all in Chinese.
Yeah.
Wang
The
Yibo.
story is fun. Watch it.
But it's happy making.
I feel
Yes,
like is that Desha who is talking right now? Like,
yes.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Nice to hear from you. I was raised on I was raised in an era where Japanese people made what was called kung fu cinema, and they did it in they're Japanese people, but they were dubbed in Chinese, and they were doing it in Japanese production studios. And the name of the show was called The Water Margin, and it was a super amazing like site. It was very superhero oriented, and the other show was called Monkey, and it was written for the Stone Monkey God sort of epic poem and epic saga inside of Chinese mythology. And my brother and I could probably find in 10 seconds the opening sequence to Monkey, which it tells you just so how weird. Hold on. Monkey opening sequence. Let's just do this. Let's have this fun. Is 64. Good, we're dropping. I'm going to love it when it gets to like 14. Those 14 people, Jaden, me, Max, Shasti, you know, like, yeah, those people are going to be amazing. Okay, let's see if this is the one.
In the world?
Yep, hold on. This is it. I'm going to share it with you. It is ridiculous, and it's what I was raised on.
Ooh.
Google Chrome, share.
Before Monkey, primal chaos reigned. Heaven sought order, but the phoenix can fly only when its feathers are grown. The four worlds formed again and yet again, as endless wheeled and passed. Time and the pure essences of heaven, the moisture of the earth, the powers of the sun and the moon, all worked upon a certain rock old as creation. And it became magically fertile. That first egg was named Thought. Tathagata Buddha, the father Buddha, said, "With our thoughts, we make the world." Elemental forces caused the egg to hatch. From it then came a stone monkey. The nature of monkey was irrepressible.
Monkey magic, monkey magic, monkey magic.
So what's so interesting about that right away is just every actor's name is Japanese right away. So you realize that like even in the 70s, there was this very weird like cultural appropriation space, this crossover space. I mean, whoa. I was living in the UK watching that as a kid, as a little person. The bass line goes hard. Yes, the bass line did go hard. Yes, the bass line did go hard indeed. Yeah, monkey magic, weird shit for sure. And I could keep on pulling this stuff out if you want to know like what weird mashup is my life, you know? Like I think you guys have a sense of it because you have access to so much stuff. I didn't have access to so much stuff. I just, for whatever reason, had the weirdest stuff. And so having Monkey in one ear and Doctor Who in the other.
Oh, hell yeah.
You know, like, you know that like me making a post-racial science fiction blog called Blart was inevitable, you know? And for everyone that, you know, for everyone who's curious, you should know that the 15th astronaut that NASA just sent up is actually the first Black person to live on the International Space Station. Like, that's a thing. That just happened this last week. And the coolest thing about that is if you just run the numbers clearly in your brain, that like now at one point, we have the possibility of extraterrestrial contact with a person of color as well as a white person. This possibility now would create such a different relationship with any alien being for our species as we go into space. It's kind of like why they haven't fucked with us so far. They're like, don't they have some Black people down there? Like, why aren't they putting some of those people up? And then when they put them up, maybe we'll go visit. You know, like in your brain, you're thinking like the Vulcans, right? They all held back on first contact because they're like, human beings aren't fucking ready for us. We're so logical and we're so badass that like, when they meet us, they'll probably do what they did to that guy in the day the earth stood still. They just fuck him up, you know, like they wouldn't know what to do. And sure enough, we probably wouldn't, but it's nice to know that even, you know, even now we're making tiny steps forward. Even now, even in this bizarre age that we live in, that there are tiny steps forward happening for everybody. And land acknowledgements are no bullshit, by the way. I started it with a land acknowledgement. Like, if you ever get into a meeting with more than half a dozen people and you're not sort of saying to yourself, you know what? We should just acknowledge the place that we're in and how we got here. A good friend of mine calls it Takesgiving instead of Thanksgiving. I'm like, yeah, Takesgiving makes perfect sense to me. Motherfuckers just took everything, right? And you don't have to go to like the former Yugoslavia and take a look at that bloody war to figure out what genocide looks like. You don't have to go to Myanmar to figure out what genocide looks like. Genocide happened right here. And not only did it already happen here once, but it was attempted again. What do you think this fucking fight is about? What do you think George Floyd's neck is about? That's not about like one guy, one knee, one neck. That is just today's version of how we give other people permission to kill Black men. Because it's going to be okay. You're not going to get fucked with. You can kill Trayvon Martin if you want to. Because there's no consequences. And that's one of the reasons why that walk poster is so important, is because the word consequences is on it. If white people don't want to be racist, then create consequences for other white people who are, and we've got ourselves a ball game. But if white people don't create consequences for white people who are racist, then how the fuck are we supposed to get anywhere? Do I have that poster handy? I
Yeah,
don't know.
just ask you.
Well, I have the coaster. The
Sounds
coaster-
like poster, so good enough.
Yeah. This is the coaster. Right? And the word consequences is the only important word. Because everyone can think, I'm not a racist, therefore, that's good. But when you encounter racism, what do you do? Do you say, oh, grandpa, he's just so old, he won't be here for much longer? Or do you say, that shit is unacceptable? Like, is it? Is it unacceptable to you? Why would it be unacceptable to you? Well, it would be if you were black, but if you're not black, why? Well, why not just say it up front in a coaster? Put it under the drink. Put it on a poster by your front door of your house. Let people know. Here, I create consequences. If someone asks you what are the consequences, you say, well, it starts with me telling you that that's not okay, and it finishes with you getting the fuck out. And sometimes with my foot in your ass. I mean, like create consequences. If you let it all go, nothing will ever change. And so the word here is not racist. The word here is consequences. Anyone can talk about racism. How many people talk about consequences? How many people are driven to create consequences? And there are those who believe that consequences don't apply to them. But if you say that they will, then they do, and they will, and they should. And it's got so much to do with the idea that what we can do is we can set up the place where it is true, and then we just follow up on it. But if you don't say it, then people just don't have, they think of it being unfair if you hold them accountable for a consequence that you didn't tell them was in action in the first place. That's what I find weird. Oh man, I didn't mean anything by it. There's no sign or nothing that says that I don't get to be who I want to be. What, we can't have free speech around here? What's going on? Right? And the reality of that is that like all of us are unprepared. Not anymore. Coaster, poster, be prepared, set the consequences, make safe spaces happen. Dina's like, is he still fucking talking? I totally agree, Dina. When will he stop? But Johnny, you've been nodding a lot. What's your story, my man? Or is it dinner time? Did I catch you like yes, I did, didn't I? Naturally. That's exactly how that works.
Sorry, but I was also agreeing with what you were saying about consequences, and I was just thinking about kind of like a deeper thought about how I kind of feel like there's kind of a what is the term, a catch-22.
Okay, what's that?
And in that sense of like responding with violence, like I understand why you want to respond with violence and give them that consequence, but I feel like there's an image that is painted of minorities like myself, and by responding that way, we kind of like reaffirm like, oh look, see, he did it, and that's like a narrative that they're trying to paint.
I totally agree. Here's what's beautiful about it though. This isn't for you and me. This is for the white people who say that they want to be allies. Let them start creating consequences for people, because like for you and me, you're right. Like violence, and it doesn't say violence, by the way, it just says consequences. It doesn't say violence. And I totally respect that your read came from maybe some of the other things I said, but ultimately the resistance to this idea comes from fear of being persecuted because you create the consequences. It's a very real fear. I think that that's what makes this such a brave statement, is that a white person can use it and create a place that doesn't benefit them directly. It benefits other people. That's what's so nice about it, you know? And this is the tool for white folk. This is not the tool for brown folk and black folk. The tool for brown folk and black folk is get the fuck out of here. That's the tool, and you know it well. You've said it more times than you can count. Get the fuck out of here. That's some bullshit. That's some bullshit. I ain't fucking with that, right? That's your tool. You know how to use it. White people, they don't know how to say that. They don't know how to say that. And they also wouldn't necessarily know what their, I want to use the word carefully, but what their responsibility is to people of color. And I would say that their responsibility, what's up, Florence, and your people of color? Wait, don't fall over, brother. Don't fall over. I see that.
Excuse me. What was that crude representation of the black community? Not to be offensive, but I just heard like, get out of here. Was that supposed to be like something?
That's me saying to people when they tell me some racist shit, I say, get the fuck out of here.
Oh, word. Because, you know, it's like easy to run into those type of problems. So it's like, yeah, no, I could definitely relate with that.
Yeah. I mean, the nice version of that is going to be something to the effect of, if that is your reality and you got to have your reality right here in front of me, what do you want me to do with it? Right?
Yeah.
What would you like me to do with that reality? Would you like me to embrace it? Would you like me to allow it? Would you like me to create a safe place for your racism? Like, what do you need from me? Right? And then when someone gives you some other bullshit on top of that, you're like, yeah, get the fuck out of here. I'm not creating a safe space for you, you bigot. You know? And,
Exactly.
But what's strange for me is that like the narrative has recently come into the space where white people want to do something. And I'm good with that. But when you do something, the best thing that you can do is not tell me how you're not a racist. Just tell me how you will create consequences for racists when you come in contact with them. That is the best thing that you can do. You're taking the burden off of me. And that is the true gift.
You punish people for voicing their opinion. It's like,
Say again?
You can't really punish an individual for like voicing their own opinion, because at the end of the day, it's either they're going to say it to you or they're going to hold it inside. So either way, as you were saying earlier, it's like they kind of present their reality to you. You kind of just have to deal with how they perceive the world to be, and you go about your own life moving accordingly.
Agreed.
They're in my space.
Agreed. And the best thing that we can do then, and this is the person of color talking about what we are doing, because you get angry with someone, you get killed. It's just that simple. You don't fuck with people, you get killed fucking with people. So the work that white people can do for black people is to create consequences so that we don't have to be, bent out of shape over something. Just let everybody sort themselves out, and everybody knows that is not welcome here, right? But you have to create the consequences. Wait, I swear to God, Amanda, did you just jump from one frame to the next? Oh, messing with me big time. I love that.
We're in class together. We're roommates.
Got it. I was like, wait, that's Amanda. Amanda's got all this body language. I'm like, okay, someone's getting excited. And then they jump into the other frame. That's pretty good.
That's a good magic trick.
It really was. But the reason why these posters exist is because I love that my white brothers and sisters want to do something, and I want to make them a tool that they can make useful in their lives. That is what this is about. That's what this sentence is about. I'm going to give you a chance and a tool to make value out of how you feel. Use it, make it useful, and make safe and brave spaces for all people of color and for women so that we can move this whole thing forward. because Black people can't carry the weight by themselves. It's just too dangerous.
And it's not your job to teach us.
It actually has been our job. We've been doing it well.
Yeah, but now it's our job to teach each other.
But if someone tells me they want to help out, I'm like, this is how you help, right? Take uncle and auntie and grandma and grandpa and teach them that if they want a relationship with you, it comes at the cost of being a human being. That's how it works, right? Old racist shit is still racist shit. Even if they're gonna die soon, not soon enough. Help them go to the grave with a clear conscience too. What greater gift can you give your elders than helping them shuffle off this mortal coil with a clear conscience about equanimity and about clarity, about humanity and what we're good for, right? That's the gift.
Do you think bringing in like the true fear of history has a play into like shaping people's minds? Like about racism, like a lot of what we see, like a lot of people try to like, oh, here's a slave movie, but it's not half of what actually went down. Like they try to make like these movies seem like this is what went down. Like not a lot of people know about the book The Delectable Negro. Like
Right.
That's something that's like, or like using slave skin, like just the true fear about the history and just people thinking like, oh yeah, people were slaves or like people got whipped and everything, but like that's not the true. You think we should?
I agree with you. I think that bringing it into focus for people is really difficult. Florence, I don't have a nose piercing. No,
Cameron does.
Oh, okay. I did this piece for Field Notes. I don't know how many of you guys follow Field Notes and the whole Aaron Draplin thing, but I did a project for Field Notes, and on the cover of this book, Field Notes has never written a thing about equity, blackness, fairness, queerness, and I took over the cover of this book, and in 5-point type, I said, a fast way to get an understanding of what it's like to be Black in America is for you to think about a traffic ticket or a traffic stop going horribly, fatally wrong for someone that you love. Period. And the reason why I said that was that it seemed to bring some things into focus for people. Like imagine being pulled over by a cop and having him have his hand on his gun the entire time. Imagine being pulled over by a cop and him drawing the weapon, right? Imagine being scared enough to do the wrong thing while you're reaching for your license and your insurance while his weapon is drawn. And imagine that happening to someone who you care about. That's real. And that's in the present. In the world of history, I don't know whether or not you can change someone's mind by showing them a period piece from the Nat Turner Rebellion, or a period piece that talks about slavery, or a period piece like The Color Purple or Roots. I don't know if you can change their mind. I think what you can do is you can create a sense of how old the conversation is, but I don't know if you can make someone care more with history. I think you can have someone care more with, imagine going on to Facebook Marketplace and getting robbed, right? Like imagine having a negative experience just because you're Black. Imagine something going terribly wrong just because you have a stutter and you're Black, right? That you can't speak your immediate and necessary truth to someone and you're dismissed, and then you get upset, and then someone says you're not allowed to get upset and angry. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to shoot you because I don't like upset, angry Black people. They are a threat to me, right? So So I think the present tense is a better instrument for teaching people how Blackness still is so dangerous in this country. Just the act of being Black is dangerous, and being a man in this country is so dangerous. But I think history is still useful. Someone said this. This is a really interesting topic. Said, why do they show me in 7th grade just when I'm becoming a young man? Why do they show me so many images of nonviolent protest? Why do they continue to bombard me with images of nonviolent protest at the young age of 13 and 14 years old? Is that what they want from me whenever I am at my most vulnerable and most angry? Is to be nonviolent? And do they want this because they fear me? And do they fear me because they fear retribution for all of the violence that they have perpetrated upon me and my people?
Yes.
And so, you know, it's a really big conversation. It's a super big, I don't have answers for all of it, but I do think that the present tense is good at teaching about the present tense problem. And I think some work can be done by teaching about the past. But boy, it seems awfully transparent that every young Black man in public school in America is bombarded with images of nonviolent protest at the point where they would be able to raise a fist against the oppressors who have hurt them and their people so much. Right? It would be like showing a woman images of home ec class circa 1952 in order for them to feel like they would have a successful life post high school, instead of teaching them about careers, right? It's important that you be a very effective wife. It's important that you be a very effective woman in the kitchen and with the laundry, right? And not something other than that. That's what it would be akin to. And we don't do that, you know? We don't segregate boys and girls into shop and home ec, and we don't have that, you know, like we don't have that framing for womanhood these days. And so I think also there needs to be a reframing of Blackness so that people can be more full and more like their whole selves. And if I want to be angry, I don't want it to get me fucking killed. But you know, that's like that's a goal for another time, you know, because I think that these days seeking permission to be angry is like the opposite action that we actually need. Ironically, right? At the point where we're most entitled to that anger, the real truth of it and the real hope that I have is that what we really are going to find is people who will share the responsibility of creating justice. And that's what I mean by consequences, is sharing responsibility for a world that has justice as its primary arc. And the little things that we can do to lend our Black, brown, queer, female, non-binary brothers and sisters, to lend them all, white, you know, to lend them all tools for creating a world that has more justice in it. And whatever tools work for them, to pass them on. And to share strategies, you know, like these are important things. And so at a time when I feel most entitled to the anger, I put it on a piece of paper for sure. And then I secretly pray that there are people who will join me in this work. Because justice is all we've got, right? Like we have to think about it as like, this is the frame through which people's needs get met, that people get seen, is justice. And I think that's what we've got to aim for. Consequences for bigots, yeah, that's part of justice. It really is. And it's everybody's job to create those consequences, not just mine. But I'll do my work, you know. I'll do my work. Nigel, what's up?
Yo, what's good?
Is that your painting behind you?
It is. I can like bring it
All
closer.
right, Nigel.
Oh. Amanda, that's not another one of your roommates, is it, Amanda? Like Amanda's not just gonna jump into Nigel's frame like, what up?
They're all really in one room together. The whole group.
I mean, we're not with Nigel. He's just our friend.
Nigel, it's time for your studio visit.
My studio visit? I try my best. Yeah, this is my my best friend and neighbor, and he's like right here.
Hold on.
What?
Looks like
You
Chance the
made a
Rapper.
painting and then you made a person.
That's funny. Everybody says that he looks like Chance the Rapper.
Yeah, no, true.
Yeah, this is like the starting of the series that I was making in oil paint, because I wanted to build up my portfolio, because I'm trying to have a show in, I think, March.
Nice.
Yeah, so I've just been stuck in the house. I gotta do something. So
I agree with that. That's pretty interesting. That's some sci-fi shit, though. That's like a half electric eel, half snake. Like, tell me.
Actually, it's a
dinosaur, right?
Diplocolus. It's a Diplocolus. It's an extinct amphibian. So it's actually real. But you know, yeah, it's something like that. So my idea was basically, I don't think of time as linear. I've been learning a lot about quantum space-time and all that.
Nice.
So what it is the past and the future exist simultaneously as the present. So I wanted to represent that kind of in more earthly terms, you know, like this is Earth's past interacting with Earth's present, and I wanted to show that. So that was my idea, since I like extinct animals and all that.
You know what's cool about that is that I actually have written that down in a law, and I'm going to put the link in the chat. I did this piece on Afrofuturism for Medium, and
It's literally the project I'm doing now. Oh my gosh.
Really? Who?
Yes,
who's that?
Afrofuturism.
Oh, Cameron. Okay, so there's a lot to digest in that conversation of Afrofuturism, but sometime about 1.5 years ago, I wrote a piece. Hold on, I'm gonna try and bring it up here. Rick, let's go tilt west. That's better. Tilt west.
What year are you, Nigel?
I'm a junior.
And are you doing the BFA program?
Yes.
So you'd be doing senior thesis next year.
I might be. I'm trying to figure out all the ins and outs of that, but hopefully I'm on track. I actually don't think I'm 3 years into the art program, because I switched my second year. So that's like a whole mess in and of itself. I used to be a computer science. I freaking hated it. So hey, I gotta follow my soul, my passions. So here I am painting like I should have been from the jump.
Yeah, you might want to take some design classes too. You're pretty good.
I might just have to email Rick over here, teach me some design. Save that email.
Got email Shasti also.
Okay, yeah, Shasti's pretty good at design too. Here is the link to the politics of The Art and Politics of Afrofuturism. I think that might be, hold on, doink. Let's see if that is the right one. Hold on.
Yeah, this is Tilt West.
That's Tilt West, but you want to find yourself to the Medium article. I might have just accidentally jacked it.
On Medium, the construct, the art and politics. Yeah, there's a link right in the beginning of that.
Perfect, and that's what you want. It's called The Construct. And in The Construct, I write 4 rules, the 4 laws of Afrofuturism. And the first one is time and space occur simultaneously. All time, all space occur simultaneously. And the reason why I say that comes back to what Cameron was talking about, which is, can we teach through history? Like, is it a good tool? And I'm like, I don't know if history alone is the tool, but if all time and space occur simultaneously, then what can happen is that we can experience history now, and we can also think about the way that we learn in the present from other presents and other present moments. In the same sense that, like, Black people's grief is like our tool for time travel. Like, we hitch a ride on 400-year-old trauma only to learn about ourselves and our experience, only for the purpose of elevating our ability as time travelers, which is something that, like, white people don't have access to. And there's all sorts of really interesting things that come with us as we perform these time traveling acts. And so I love the idea that time and space occur simultaneously, because I don't have to just learn from the past. I can learn from the now. And I can learn from science fiction. I can learn from the later, right? I can learn from so many things that haven't happened yet if I allow them to enter into my subconscious and my psyche. And so I think that it's a weird space to occupy, but I love that time and space happen simultaneously. Like, that's totally true for me, Naja. Totally true for me. Love that. You know, that's great. That's a great painting, by the way. Just fantastic.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that like a lot.
Yeah. Chance the Rapper with a crazy dinosaur. Got it.
Man, you are probably, one of the most endearing people that I've heard, speak, give one of these speeches. I don't know. I feel this connection right here.
Yes.
Right in my chest.
We are together in this.
When you said that you love so much that it's just frustrating. I say that all the time, and that really struck something in me, man. Any of my friends will tell you, like, I talk about I love so much, I just want to punch shit. Like, I just it's frustrating.
That's so exciting. That's so exciting. Yeah. Especially the thing that makes me crazy in love with stuff is the possibility of invention. Just possibility. It makes me crazy. Let me show you this. I'm going to give you guys a little preview.
I told you would love him as much as I do. I told you.
I'm so excited for tomorrow. Like, tomorrow's gonna be good. Yeah.
So this is my latest print, and it's gonna be published in printmag.com. I'm gonna turn the lights down. Hold on. I'll get the lights just right. Yeah, here it is. So it says, it's the right time again. It's a good time again to invent, make, create new demands and constraints for and of designers. To embrace more, any, or many imaginations and less seduction, because good design need not have victims. And in order for me to like write this piece for Print Mag, I had to make that poster. I had to say that design, I love design so much. And it's a good time to just ask ourselves, how can we create with no victims? How can we create with less victims? It's a good time to ask. It's we're just not the only people being challenged right now. Like the culture that we live in that experiences design is being oppressed by capitalism. And design's action with capitalism makes us complicit with that action. And we have to figure out what part of it is real for us and important, and what part of it need not happen. What part of it we want to divorce ourselves from. What part of it we want to break up with. And one of the reasons why that's so important and such a great opportunity is because just like that painting, it's our imaginations that will run the future. It's not a hypothesis, it's not a maybe, it's not a fiction. You literally will run your shit. All of you will run some shit. You may become parents, you're running that shit. You may be parents already, you're running that shit. Right? You may be someone's boss, you're running that shit. Right? Like whatever you do well, however you decide to take responsibility, you're running that shit. And to do that with your whole imagination, with all of those possibilities, and to know that you want to do this with no victims, you want to create this action where nobody is harmed, just to move it forward like that. 44 people who want that can make a difference. And so as you move forward, not to the place that like is like the shitty job, the job after the shitty job, right? As you move into the place where, you know, you're like just getting a tiny bit of authority, opportunity, responsibility, keep that in your action. Your imagination is your greatest tool. Your love of the moment you're in is your greatest tool, because it's that will treat people right. It's that which will help other people benefit from your action. That's what it is. And I don't know if other graphic designers want to talk about graphic design that way. I pretty much figure not. But I'm here to say, like, good graphic design is easy to do. I mean, fucking Pinterest, right? But a good life in graphic design, not being a sellout, not copying other people's shit, finding a voice of your own, having some confidence to make a few mistakes, right? Stepping into honesty, right? That's the stuff that's difficult. Making a B, even an A in a graphic design class is infinitely easier in 2020 than it ever was. Because you're spending like 9.5 hours in this fucking screen box, like surfing the internet, being distracted by everything that moves. and it's all there. All the successful things are there, right? Nike, hundreds of successful commercials, ads, campaigns, whatever. It's all there for you to look at. It's just a question of like, is that who you want to be? Is that where you want to be? Is that how you want to be a designer? That's the most important thing, is the question that you're answering, right? If the only question that's being asked is how can you sell more sneakers for Nike? I get that. That's a real thing. And someone's asking you that question, and it's your choice to say, I don't know. We'll have to throw some things at the wall and see what sticks, right? But if the other question is, how can I live a rich, full life as a graphic designer in a number of different actions that are not all capitalistic? Some of them are gifting, some of them are bartering, some of them are just being in community. How can I let my ideas be known? How can I be in a community of people that care about diversity of thinking? How can I be in a place that honors my imagination? See what I mean? Those questions are hella harder. And it's the fact that some people don't ask those questions that give even some of us a chance at getting those questions asked. So having a good life in graphic design isn't for everyone. But for 43 people, it's a possibility.
And
Yeah?
it'll be a possibility tomorrow too.
Oh shit, we gotta do this all over again?
No,
Not really all over again, just different.
no, just different.
Who's hanging out tomorrow? Is it the same 42 people?
We got a few people. Yeah, we got a few people who get to have a little bit more of a direct conversation with you.
Yeah. So do me a favor, guys. So follow a bunch of those links. Some of the early influences will be interesting, and then some of the stuff that's like in the work or whatever. Just go deep, dig a little bit, see what's out there, and then have a couple of questions. Reason why I say have a couple is because the first question is going to be the one that like you'll share with 6 other people, right? The second question you might share with 2 or 3 people. And the thing that you most want to know selfishly for your own reasons, that's the one I want to try and help you with. Right? That's the one I want to help you with. Do the work and write the question perfectly. Let me know who you are by the question that you ask. And that way we can be in that connection. Because I put all of this out there for you from me in a sense that we share this life, right? We share this space, we share this ambition. We want to be graphic designers, and we want to be evolving as graphic designers, which I assure you it is an evolution. But where are you now? What's holding you in that place? Are you okay with what that is? Or do you need to be set free from something in order to go further? Like, that's what we can do tomorrow. Yes, Amanda, resubmit your question. Do it again. Whatever. Like, I'm 8 drafts into a 21-word sentence. Give me a break. Work harder. but the other thing that I always like to remind people of is that, like, if you didn't like what I said, I'm sure you could ask for a refund. If you did like what I said, it's because these people on the call, Shasti and Max, they know me and they have brought me to you. Respect. Respect for the people that bring people not like them to the conversation and share their thoughts with you, right? That's what I love. We are totally in a community, and that community is full of misfits. Do you really think I could say this to a bunch of other graphic designers? They would be all up in my shit about, like, why I'm so stuck up about what I think good graphic design is. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. Sell your sneakers. I don't give a fuck about that. I'm allowed to care about it differently. As long as you've got the North Face Patagonia game covered, I'm allowed to think about something else, right? I'm allowed to care about something different. I'm allowed to be in a community. Like, do you know how long I've waited to have a dozen Black designers, Black, young, smart, articulate, wonderful, beautiful people in college, in a conversation, in the same thing that I'm trying to get done? Like, for decades, I was just talking to white people. For decades. And so to have brown and Black people show up wanting to be graphic designers and wanting to express themselves and wanting to do all this work, it makes me so excited, because these are the more imaginations that I'm talking about, right? And I'm not omitting my Asian brothers and sisters or my Blasians, because I know there's some Blasians out there too, for real, Do we actually have some Blasians on the call?
Let's go!
I think we're all in it together if we can really be in it together. It takes work to do it together. So it's dinner time for me. It's got to be like 7:30 over here. It's like 9:30 your time.
Yep.
Yeah.
We went an hour and a half over.
We went an hour and a half over. We're down to 41. It's cool. It's dropping. People are just dropping.
Oh yes. So those of you who have class with me tomorrow, we're looking forward to you joining us.
This is my food.
Night, Dina.
And thank you, my darling, magnificent friend, that I am so privileged to have you in my life. And I'm like the luckiest person because I get to love you.
If you guys want to talk about some other graphic designy shit tomorrow, I would be happy to.
Yeah, bring your shit, people.
We'll all share screens. We'll all be the co-hosts, whatever. But but I want to show you maybe one more thing that I made a while back that always cracks me up. Always cracks me up. So let me just show this to you real quick. Bloop. Bloop. I was not. So Obama was elected in 2008, right? So that would make you guys how old in 2008?
9.
9.
Around 8, 9, yeah.
I was 7.
So really exactly the same age as my kids. And I got to do that for the DNC because it was in Denver. And this notion of like truth being useful, just track with me for a moment what's being said here, right? I mean, just these three pieces, something to be full of, sounds fairly natural. Change. As a young person, right, I'm thinking change is like positive change. And when I'm thinking of progress, I think of what's better than positive change is progress. And I didn't hold back. That's the thing that I like retroactively have come to appreciate, is that like the way that you approach work with your own voice, it feels like honesty. It just feels like where you're at. And I think that that's all we can really do. Just know ourselves and work from where we're at. That particular piece is in a book called Art for Obama. It was the whole DNC thing. And I was so proud of it. But most importantly, I realized that like rather than just be making pop art, I actually made something that was representative of how I felt at the time and was true and real for me. And it's those little successes that have got to do with finding your own voice, being courageous enough to put a handful of words out there, being courageous enough to follow up with it. Arigato gozaimasu.
I love you so fuck. Oh my god. I can't get enough of your energy. Thank you for.
If you have time, join us tomorrow for the.
Yes.
I just put the link in the chat for the class tomorrow. It starts at 12:45. And if you'd like to join us, you're more than welcome.
Megan, Sydney, are we going to hear from you tomorrow? Yeah, Megan, yeah. Right on, right on. All right, Cassandra, we're going to hear from you tomorrow. Maybe, if we're lucky. Got it. Leah, going to hear from you tomorrow? Yeah, right on, right on. All right, Taryn, good night.
Love you, baby.
Thank you. Thank you all, diehards, for sticking around and having a great conversation. Rick, a million thanks.
Have a nice dinner, Rick.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Have a beautiful
Bye.
night. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.